have a look at the sketch. There can be three different variants for this skirt. The first one is when the draping is in the center front. In this case, the flounce would rise in the center front. The second variant is when the draping is above the left knee, and the flounce is also rising above the knee. Just as it is in the sketch, pay attention to the flounce. It's even. It's just pulled and slightly raised at the draping. It makes the skirt look asymmetric. The third variant is when the draping is located in the side seam. The frill would also rise on the side seam in this case. You can make a bow here, for example. It's better just to sew a bow to this point, but not to put the fabric together by the lace and tie it. I'll show you how to make the draping. I'll show you a lot of useful techniques and details when working with this skirt. Get ready for hard work. I'll show you how to make a pattern for this skirt, how to cut and take it. I'll also show you how to make the draping. The total length of the skirt is 75 centimeters, from the top down to the very bottom. The length of the flounce is 25 centimeters. The upper part of the skirt will be 50 centimeters long. As I've said, the flounce is even. It should be cut straight. I've already shown you the sketch, and next I want to show you the fabric. It's coffee colored. The draping made of this fabric would look very good. I thought of making a double frill, but it would be too thick in this case. I've decided to make a one-layer flounce with an overcast. I also need to add 4 cm to the bottom, 3 cm for an overcast and 1 cm for the seam allowance. So basically, I need to cut a flounce, which is 29 cm long. What about the width of the flounce? Let's have a pattern. These are the front and the back details. This is the bottom. The skirt will be tight at the bottom. It should be close-fitting. Otherwise, the draping wouldn't look good. The width of the skirt at the bottom is about 50 centimeters. That makes 1 meter in total. The width of the frill should be twice as large. I'd like to make a very flat frill. So basically, I need to cut the detail, which is 29 centimeters long and 2 meters wide. Let's start working with the pattern. I can move the sketch aside. The back of the skirt is very simple. I don't need to change it. This is the front of the skirt. First, I need to make sure that this is the right side. Be very attentive. This is the center front. If you make draping in the center front, you should cut the pattern according to this line. In this case, you can work with just one side of the front.
Вторая часть, мы бы одну половину сделали, раздвинули, и обе бы одинаково выглядели идентично. Мы можем делать драпировку.
You can also make draping in the side seam.
Разрезать с этого бока, открывать, а потом собирать. Но мы будем делать...
In my case, the draping will be placed 12 centimeters away from the center front. On the left side.
Это у нас левое колено. Лицо, нанесли линию разреза. Если бы у вас были выточки, у кого выточки,
I've signed the right side in the detail
вы бы вырезали, вот
and I've drawn the line for making the draping.
Но у нас нету выточек. У кого есть
If there are base tacks here in your patterns, move them to the draping. It's not hard to do it. There are no tucks in my pattern. My body is perfect, pretty square. I can cut the details now.
Так, разрезаем. Ну и дальше я хочу...
I don't want to waste time cutting the fabric for the draping now. I'll do it right on fabric.
Я пока убираю спинку, я пока...
I can move the back, the sketch aside.
И мы сейчас с вами начнем делать прямо...
Let's get down to work with the pattern.
Очень заморочно сейчас все разрезать, а потом пытаться где-то еще лучше делать.
I think that it would be too complicated to cut the pattern first and then apply it to the fabric. Have a look here. I put the fabric on the table face up,
Когда мы будем кроить спинку,
and the pattern on the fabric face up as well.
будем кроить идентично, как всегда, в два слоя.
When cutting the back, I'll fold the fabric in half as usual. But now, when cutting the front, I need to do it this way. Please be very attentive.
Ну, прежде чем начать делать драпировку, я хочу сказать, что мы хотим от этой ткани. Ну, я бы хотела...
In my case, the draping ratio will be 1.7 or 1.8.
Я бы совсем не
You can make it bigger if you want,
умножить это будет...
but I think that it would be too much.
Сборка у нас коэффициент 2. Теперь смотрите. У меня здесь 50 сантиметров.
This detail is 50 centimeters long.
40. Чтобы у меня вот этот шов был 90
I think that I'll add 40 more centimeters.
левую часть приоткрывать и выкладывать
The total measurement will be 90 centimeters.
90 сантиметров. Кто-то возьмет...
You can extend the pattern more or less. It's up to you. You can change the design however you want.
И от нашего драпировки...
I need to cut the pattern in order to extend it. Watch the way I'm doing it.
Вырезаете.
Notice that I don't measure or calculate anything. I'm cutting the details by sight.
Считываю. Ничего, я вот режу, как мне хочется, и все. Ну вот от талии совсем
Notice
вот здесь
that I do not make cuts in the upper part of the skirt,
так немножко
up from the hip line.
до конца надрезаю. Мы должны
I need to pin the pattern in such way that this detail is 90 centimeters long.
Раствор вот этот, вот это расстояние. Все строим от своей...
This is absolutely the same pattern.
Нам нужно,
The
чтобы
skirt
вот
would
эта
fit
линия
me
стала 90.
just like it was in the original one.
Пока видите, что примерно прикидываю. Ну, у меня вот так и есть. Вот.
90 centimeters.
Значит, я вот
Perfect.
эти крайние прикалываю.
I need to pin the edges
Взять. А
and then distribute the other details evenly.
Но дело в том, что вот это расстояние,
Do not forget to mark the
оно
side
должно
seam.
точно таким же получиться во второй половине, а то у нас будет несовпадение.
These distance should be even in the second detail. This is very important.
Всё, сейчас
When I
я
pin the
буду
details,
сколько же.
I'll measure them once again.
Так.
$88 centimeters.
сантиметров. Но я
I'm not going to detach the pattern and pin it once
должна
again.
быть 88.
I'll just make the second one 88 centimeters long.
Ну, вот
I'm not going to cut the upper part of the skirt in this detail as well.
думаю, что мне придется разрезать вот эту вырезку.
Be very attentive, please. You can count the number of the cuts in the first detail and make as many cuts in the second one. I think that is a waste of time.
Это можно не делать. Это шелковая тафта,
This is not a mock-up.
которую я буду
The fabric is of a high quality.
ткань, поэтому я думаю, что это будет очень красиво.
I'm sure that the skirt will look
Пока
great.
не представляю, с чем ее буду носить.
I can't wait to try the skirt on.
Какая-нибудь розовая,
I still need to decide what to wear it with.
или кружево, или тафта, или не знаю.
Have a look here.
Ну вот,
I need to pin the
смотрите,
detail
что мы должны
and distribute the openings evenly.
выложить таким образом, чтобы
I remind you that these details should be 88 centimeters long.
сейчас мы найдем это расстояние. Когда у нас тут будет 88.
When I make sure that this detail is 88 centimeters long, I'll pin the edges and then distribute the other
И
openings.
тогда уже буду распределять вот это все.
93 centimeters. Too much. Make sure that you have enough fabric for the seam allowance.
Да. Еще
I need to move it a bit more.
так вот. То, что я вам сейчас
Notice that I'm not doing anything off the camera.
Да.
I show you the whole process.
Туда. Не хватает.
I need to move the pattern a bit. There is not enough space for the seam allowance here.
Еще раз проверяю.
I need to check if the length is accurate once again.
Нам очень
I
надо,
want the
чтобы
skirt to be very beautiful.
80.
This is where the last edge should be pinned. I'm measuring down from this
Я
point.
считаю. Я за то, чтобы все, что мы делаем, мы
I
делаем
prefer to work on the basis of the basic patterns.
сделано все от основ, юбок,
Garments made this way
баз,
always fit me well.
мерок, тогда все оно не нарушает.
You know that I love working with patterns.
Когда мы начинаем что-то там
I want you to learn to be creative as well.
одевательность.
There is no need for me to add anything for the seam allowance to the top of the skirt.
Это боковой шов.
I need to add 1 cm to the side seams.
Низ. Ну,
This is the bottom.
очень всё круглое.
These edges are not straight, they're round.
Поэтому я беру
That's why it's enough to add just 5 mm for the seam allowance here.
кусаю.
Be very attentive when cutting such round details.
Почему? Много не
I don't recommend you adding too much for the seam allowance. This is the top of the skirt and this is the side seam. Next I need to cut the second detail.
Так, поверху не
I don't add anything to the top here either. Five millimeters to the edge with the draping. Very nice. One centimeter to the bottom. The last edge to be cut is the second side seam.
не достать. Нет
I
возможности.
hate it when I can't walk around the table
Это ужасно.
because of the cameras.
Терплю.
I'm cutting the second side seam.
Наша
The front of the skirt is ready.
переднее полотнище идет.
Next I need to cut the back.
Готово. Сейчас будем кроить спинку, но прежде чем кроить
First,
спинку,
I want to check if the details are even.
мы будем
This is how it should be done. If the difference is small, it's okay.
сантиметрик или миллиметр.
I'll just cut the extra pieces.
Ну,
You can see that the details match.
идеально.
Perfect.
Пусть она
I'll move the details aside. I'm not going to detach the patterns yet.
Будем вырезать спинку.
Next I need to cut the back.
Там пусть
I'll
останется,
cut from this side of the fabric
потому что нам нужно
because I still need to cut the flounce, which is going to be pretty big.
вырезать спинку.
As I've already said, the back in the skirt is going to be very simple.
Просто. Ой, сюда же еще нужна будет подкладка. У меня подкладки ж нету. Ну, найдется. Вот так вот. Вот до сюда.
I can start cutting the back from this point.
Ткань пошла. Отлично.
Very nice.
Вот так вот мы
I'll cut the back this way.
кроить.
I do not add anything to the top. 1 centimeter for the side seam. One centimeter to the bottom. I'll add 1.5 centimeters to the center back. I need to outline the waist tuck. The front and the back are ready. Next, I need to cut the flounce. I remind you that it's going to be 29 centimeters long and 2 meters wide. I need to cut the servage. The fabric is folded in half. This is why I need to measure and mark 1 meter here. As I've said, the fabric is folded in half. This is why I've measured and marked 1 meter. When I unfold the cut detail, it will be 2 meters wide. The fabric is pretty complicated. I need to cut the selvage first. Next, I need to measure and mark 29 centimeters here. The flounce seems very small. I think that I might add some to it later. I think that it would be better to add 1 meter here. I want the flounce to be beautiful. I'll think about it. Anyway, I've cut the front, the back, and the flounce. These are the skirt details, the front details, which will be draped, the back details, which are simple, and the flounce. First, I'm going to make a draping on the front. In this video, I'll show you the taking step by step. When the skirt is stacked, I'll try it on. First, I need to join the front details face to face and pin them. When the details are pinned, I'll start stitching them. I'll also show you how to make the draping. You can clearly see the extra pieces of fabric. This is what I'll make the draping of. Try not to stretch the fabric. Distribute it evenly. This seam will run above the knee. Have a look at the pin details. I can start stitching them now. This is how the first seam looks like now. The width of the seam is 7 millimeters. Do not forget to make a back stitch in the beginning of the seam. I'm not going to make a back stitch in the end of it. I'll use the lower threads to make the gather. The stitches are pretty small because the fabric is thin. Do not forget to remove the pins. Watch the way I'm doing it. This technique for using the pins for sewing is used by Natalie. You might have already noticed it. She's an amazing tailor. As I've said, I'm not going to make a back stitch in the end of the seam. Be very attentive. The lower thread is on the bigger detail. I'll pull it to gather the fabric. Next, I need to make the second seam 5 millimeters away from the first one. I'm also making a back stitch only at the beginning of the seam. There is no back stitch in the end. Have a look here. I've made 2 seams. Next, I need to take the lower threads Here they are. I need to pull them in order to make a gather. Do not try to pull the upper threads. It's very hard to do it. These are the needed threads. Be very attentive. Be patient and gather the fabric carefully. The fabric I'm working with is pretty strong. This is how the gather should be made.
У нас, помните, сначала юбка, когда мы...
I remind you that the length of the upper part of the skirt should be 50 centimeters.
Драпировка
This seam is 90 centimeters long.
Но смотрите, если мы стянем до 50,
If I gather this seam up to 50
у
centimeters,
нас не появится,
I won't get a beautiful rise.
поэтому мы должны стянуть
That's why I need to gather the fabric even more.
50 сантиметров, чтобы меньше, чтобы 50 сантиметров у нас осталось.
I'm making a draping.
Вот у меня
Have a look here.
43 сантиметра.
The length of the seam now is 43 centimeters.
Что драпировки у нас не было.
I remind you that the upper part of the skirt should not be gathered.
Ох, какая у нас будет юбка.
Let's have a look at this seam.
Представьте себе, это у нас боковой.
The skirt is going to be absolutely amazing.
Вот это немножко подзатянуто сюда, но для того, чтобы...
The fabric is gathered a little more here in order to raise the frill in this point and make the skirt asymmetric.
Все хорошо, хорошая.
I like the result. The draping looks very good.
Немножко эту точку вот так чуть-чуть подняла. Все
I'd like to gather these points a bit more.
очень хорошо. Что мне нужно? Мне нужно вот эту часть еще. И вот когда
As I've said, I want to gather the lower part a bit more.
Ничего не надо собирать. Сейчас я скажу, сколько у нас
Let me measure the seam. 40 centimeters.
То в
Perfect.
конце, вот мы все время тянули за вот эти нитки, а в конце надо...
In order to fix the draping, I need to pull the upper threads.
И больше у нас ничего здесь не будет распускаться. Все. Больше ничего нельзя уже. Ну и потом хочу сказать, теперь, конечно...
It will prevent the draping from being stretched.
или окантовать. Но у нас...
I'm going to edge this seam later.
Потому что мы, видите как, нам нужно научиться... Смотрите.
You can either edge it with a novel locker or edge it with a bias binding, for example.
А сейчас я
First, I'm going to stitch this tape to this seam.
маленькую 4-5 миллиметров и
It will make the gather stronger. This is a lengthwise tape made of satin.
Разваливалась. Атласная долевая вот такая ленточка. У нас с вами две строчки, на которые мы собирали. Можно
You can stitch the tape to the second seam, or you can stitch it in between the seams.
чем больше к краю, тогда вам не надо будет ее снимать. А можно пристрочить.
In this case, you'll need to pull the threads of the second seam.
нужную строчку аккуратненько снять.
I prefer stitching straight in the second seam.
Поэтому я шью,
I made the two seams to gather the fabric neatly.
чтобы она потом осталась. Мы
This is the best thing to do.
Поэтому у нас очень аккуратная сборочка. Благодаря вот
Thanks to this tape, the gather will be much stronger.
ничего никогда не развалится. Ну,
I'm going to edge the seam with a novel locker or a bias binding after the first fitting. Have a look here. The front of the skirt is ready.
Сейчас будет
Next, I'm going to tack the side seams.
передняя часть. Передняя полотнище.
Join the front and the back face to face.
Боковые швы.
The width of the seams is 1 centimeter.
У нас сантиметр. Я уже
I'm looking forward for the fitting. I'm already thinking about what I'm going to wear this skirt with.
Сначала первая мысль, знаете,
The first thing I thought of was pearls.
у меня же жемчуг шикарный.
I mean my pearl necklace. I love it.
У жемчуга на шее еще же что-то должно быть. Видишь, не
But I need to think of something else.
Это, знаете, из серии.
I don't think I can wear this skirt just with my necklace.
Думала и говорю,
I love my accessories. But I should put something else on. The first side seam is ready. Next I need to tack the second
И
one.
начнем собирать.
When it's done, I'll move on to taking the flounce.
Вот такая
The
штука.
fabric looks very beautiful.
Очень красиво.
It's pretty easy to drape it.
Драпировка.
I highly recommend you using this fabric.
Форму. Так. Вот
This is
наша
how the skirt looks like now.
Конечно, мы
Next I need to
когда
tack the flounce.
юбка будет готова.
I can't wait to try the skirt on.
3 метра, здесь 2
I remind you that the width of the frill is 3 meters.
сзади.
There are 2 seams in it.
Неважно.
I'd like to place them on the back.
Воздушная. Да, вот так вот. Да, очень хорошо.
The flounce is flared.
Лицом к лицу.
I like it.
На 2 ниточки
I need to join the details face to face and pin them.
сборочку.
Natalie has gathered the frill off the camera.
Отлично.
She had made 2 seams and then pulled the threads.
Я уже прямо
I
ждала,
can't wait to try this skirt on.
что будет у нас. Отлично. Да. Сейчас
When I pin the
начинаем.
details, I'll tack them.
И
It
буквально
won't take me long to tack the flounce.
примерки. Я самое главное,
I'm glad that I showed you the technique for making the draping.
любая драпировка, любая хоть
It's more or less the same in any garment.
выполняется одинаково. За счет
The
того,
flounce
что
will be
мы
raised in the point of the draping in the front.
была отпущена драпировку. За счет этого мы получаем вот такой немножко приподнятый вот этот край.
Very nice.
И сейчас
I can start taking now.
Начну вот
I'll
так
start
вот
from the draping.
строчки. Конечно, здесь 2 строчки, но дело в том,
There are
что
2
потом
seams in the
мы
flounce now.
это снимаем. Отлично.
They were made in order for us to be able to make together.
Но ничего страшного.
One of the seams will be removed later.
Обрежем.
Before stitching the details, I'll cut all the extra threads from them.
На верлаке. Навряд ли я
The seams will be edged with a novel locker.
легко одену.
I can take the pins out now.
Так, удаляем все булавки. Я думаю, мы примерно
I think I'll also tack the waistband off the camera.
и уже мы готовы мерить. Я сейчас
I can't wait to show you the result.
получилось. Смотрим.
The skirt looks very stylish.
От кутюр, кутюр, кутюр. И когда еще низко
When I make the overcast, the bottom will be stronger.
и я думаю, что по подгибке
I'm going to double the edge with the interfacing material first, and then make an overcast.
вот самый низ, вот эта подгибочка стала жестче. У меня там заложено 3 сантиметра, я думаю, 1 сантиметр и 2 сантиметра мы
I remind you that I've added 3 centimeters for an overcast.
сделать. И я думаю, что мы там что-то еще
I recommend you doubling the bottom with the interfacing material.
примерки. Сейчас мы
The stronger it is, the better the skirt will look like.
на мне. Ну вот, первая
Next, I'm going to try the skirt on.
примерку. Вот я одела на себя
Have a look at me.
юбку и вверх.
I'm wearing the tacked skirt.
Если в нижней части немножко надо
You can see that the skirt should be made tighter at the bottom.
заколола, чтобы вот чуть-чуть заужить. Ну, не так
Natalie has already pinned it at the back.
бедер и низ живота немножко надо.
I also need to ease the skirt a bit on the waistline and the hips.
Ну и, конечно, она еще без подкладки.
The skirt will be lined.
Она будет смотреть.
It will look very beautiful.
Ну, смотрим. Очень многие на
Such skirt is suitable for any special occasion. It's very unusual and stylish.
праздник прекрасно могут.
I use 3 meters of fabric for making the frill.
Ну, у меня
It's very flared. You can use less fabric. You can change the design however you want. Be creative. I just wanted to show you the technique for making the draping. I hope that everything is clear for you. That's all for today. Be different and beautiful. My name is Irina Paukshte. Buy my courses, subscribe to my channel, write comments, share the videos, press the like and the bell buttons. I would really appreciate your support. Thank you. Goodbye.